Hi, everyone. This is Michelle D'Ambra again here with Josephine Zanetti. Hi, Josephine.
Hi, Michelle. Nice seeing you again.
You too. So this week, we're going to talk about estrogen. This is really an important topic because women struggle with estrogen dominance. And it's like, okay, so how does that happen? And we're going to kind of walk through the different things that can lead up to estrogen dominance. Okay, so I'm going to just share my experience and what I believe has been a contributing factors. So my mother, whatever our mother is going through when they're pregnant with us, unfortunately, we're going to get that. So she was under stress when she was pregnant with me. Then my upbringing was stressful. I don't know too many people who don't have dysfunctional, family environment. So there was a constant state of stress. And with that, we use up our sex hormones in addition to what the adrenal glands make with adrenaline and cortisol. But, well, how do you like that? A little malfunction.
Oh, really?
There we go. I'm back.
Oh, okay. It happens.
So anyway, some of the things are one of the biggest things is stress. That'll definitely cause your hormones to be out of balance. And then Josephine and I want to talk about the minerals that are involved with that as well, because certain minerals are like the same in the body with the estrogen and the progesterone. So with estrogen, the two things are related to that are sodium and copper. And then progesterone would be potassium. And so when these minerals become out of balance, they imbalance our hormones.
That's right.
Yep.
And the biggest thing with estrogen, because it's also related to, like you said, with copper, right? And estrogen is a female element and copper is also a female element. Mm-hmm. So when your copper is really high, then the estrogen kicks in, okay? And it doesn't always have to show on the test that it's really high. Could be also a poor eliminator as well,
And in the beginning, it may show up more on the hair test. So in the beginning stages, when we have more energy, you might show for anybody who's watching this that is familiar with hair test, you may see an active elimination of copper on the hair test. When that's happening, it's through the bloodstream, it's coming out of the hair, it's coming out through the colon. You have more energy to have that elimination. Well, because it's a female mineral and it's also related to the animal brain, this would be why women have PMS, before their menstrual cycle, or they tend to be a bit bipolar emotionally. And I'm speaking from experience, because that mineral is like that. And so, and this can happen to men too. I think a lot of, things that we see where there's people being shoot up or whatever, there's shootings and stuff, they probably have a high copper on their hair test and it's going through the body. It'll make you feel crazy, literally. So what will make that out of balance is the antagonistic to copper is zinc. Well, right. If you're really stressed, you're losing a lot of zinc. And so that copper is coming up, that zinc is getting lower, and that's causing more of an imbalance with your hormones as well.
That's right. And that's why for men, how it manifests itself for men, it could be prostate cancer for men, in men, so us, it could be breast cancer, for them, it could be prostate cancer, and also how it manifests itself with men, and we see it more and more, and we've been seeing it for the last 40, 50 years, is that they develop breasts,
yep.
And now, like with everything that's happened in the last 2 years, we have not seen one man getting on his horse with the sword and let's go and do something about it, right? Because we live in an environment. It just doesn't only affect the body, it affects the mind, and it affects, it goes into every aspect of our living in our lives, and it's global. Now it's become global because, quite honestly, estrogen is in the food, it's in the air, it's in the water, it's in everything.
Plastics.
Oh, I mean,
Bottles,
it doesn't end.
everywhere.
So how can a man really become, a warrior, okay, when we have all of these things? It's true, probably purification, with the food and stuff, and being careful, because it's like unbelievable. But for men, it's a major problem. And for us women, with estrogen, some women are highly sexed. The more estrogen you have, the more highly sexed you are. And that has nothing to do with being sensual or anything like that. A lot of it has to do with the hormones. Mm-hmm. And it could be coming from abuse, because that might have triggered the estrogen as well, because as children, women or men who get abused, then they become very coppery. Mm-hmm. I had one client, he was 14 years old, and he had a very high CAMG. It was over 13.5, so it was a spiritual defensiveness, and also was copper. And we had decided that he was either on drugs, 14 years old, or he was a homosexual. And never said anything to the mother about it, because I knew how she would have reacted to that. Okay. Usually mothers, they take it personally. Mm-hmm. And then they kind of go into denial, complete denial. Okay. But this kid ended up having too much mommy and not enough daddy. And so there was something, and the mother was very copper, because she was doing the hair test as well. So he probably got the copper from her. Mm-hmm. And so the copper has a major role in the way things, the way we see things, and the way we, the way things are with the estrogen, especially because there's way more people with high estrogen than testosterone.
Well, especially because it's being trickled down from generation to generation. So, you think back, 50, 60, 100 years ago, men were probably more manly, and they've become more feminine. And we're seeing that with, with the way things have been, with people being confused or whatever, or claiming to be different than their original sex when they're born. I'm not going to claim that I understand that other than biochemically. I'm going to speak from a biochemically standpoint from what we know about minerals, is that the more copper you become, the more, because it's a feminine mineral and zinc is a masculine mineral. So men who are too coppery, I use this analogy with my clients. Look at a vegan man from California. He's probably feminine, emotional, talks about his feelings, things like that. Then go look at eating the vegan diet. Then go look at a cowboy who lives out in Montana, eats a lot of red meat. He's probably going to be more masculine. So that, he's more zinc, and then the vegan, is more coppery. So you can see this in the personalities. And that's why we can talk to people and kind of get an idea what a person's hair test is going to look like just from conversation and symptoms. I mean, that's how amazing a hair test is, and our minerals, and how it plays a role. I mean, I don't know about you, Josephine, but just in my personality, I can tell, I could go back in history and almost guess what my hair test was like from the different things I've gone through in my life and how I felt. Like, I know for many years I had a low sodium to potassium ratio. One, I quit using salt when I was 20 years old, which was really stupid. I needed salt, especially good quality salt. And I had a lot of infections. I had a lot of problems with my teeth, tons of dental work. Well, what has changed in the last 6 years since I started using sea salt and my body chemistry changed? I've had zero problems with my teeth. Zero. I went from having all kinds of problems with my teeth all kind of abscess and, needing crowns and root canals to absolutely nothing. And I don't even use, fluoride toothpaste. I use natural toothpaste. So one, the diet changed, I don't have a lot of sugars in my diet. And then two, my body chemistry changed. I have a high sodium to potassium ratio. In fact, I can tell when my sodium to potassium goes lower because I start to feel some things. Like the other day, a little bit of blood came out of my gums. I was like, you know what? I bet my sodium potassium dipped down. Like, so I went and rinsed my mouth with salt water and it was gone the next day. And then my sodium went up. So it's really, really quite fascinating. How
Absolutely, because in order to balance our biochemistry, there's certain foods that we need to avoid. And now you're talking about your all the cavities and all kinds of problems you had with your mouth. But if you don't eat like the fruits, the sugars, you don't drink the alcohol, you don't have chocolate, and even the fermented foods, because the fermented foods is the other thing. I know it's a big fad. It's been a fad for quite a while, but there's a lot of toxic that comes out of that. But it's amazing when you start certain food and get into a diet of cooked vegetables and meat and certain grains that, I mean, unbelievable. So yeah, I mean, we're testimony of that. There's no question about that, right? Because we wouldn't be on this program if it wouldn't be working. There's no question. And I mean, it's not to say that we're 100%, but we're doing pretty well.
Yeah. So back to estrogen, people who will have this high copper, you can feel it because it's very emotional. The racing mind might be a little OCD, very, a little bit, there's more ego when, I notice my clients who have high elevated copper and a faster oxidation, they kind of get their hair test and then they convince themselves that they don't need to do this. And then I don't hear from them. It's really quite amazing. It's until they shift into slow oxidation and don't have the energy, there's less ego. And you kind of go through and you go from extrovert to introvert. And I know this because I remember when I was more outgoing and I would go get help, 2015, whatever the times that I would go get help, I convinced myself, things are good. My energy's back. I don't need to take all these supplements and do all that stuff. That's, whatever. I got my life. And because there was more ego. And now I understand it more. There's less ego and I can see things more clearly. So a lot of my clients I noticed that have these stress patterns or have this elevated copper or fast oxidation, they don't listen as much because there's more ego there.
Yes, exactly. And, there's certain foods also that raises the estrogen, like yam potatoes, let's say, another kind of food, and arsenic also, that is, you find that in the poultry. So we got to be careful where we buy our chicken, because you don't want to buy a chicken that's coming from cages. You want one that's running around and is being fed properly, because more and more chemicals and metals are given to our animals that we're eating.
Hormones. They get hormones that kind of fatten them up. So that's why it's important to have organic meats as well and free range and not given, vegetarian diets. People think, vegetarian diet, that's good. No, animals are not supposed to be vegetarian. There's, your chickens are supposed to be eating the bugs. They shouldn't be eating corn.
That's right. That's right.
Things to kind of pay attention to. And your stress, if you're stressed out, you're losing zinc, increasing copper, and that's going to cause the hormones to be out of balance. If I were to go back in time, I probably would have listened. Even in my 30s, a doctor tested me and I had low zinc. And I had a lot of high copper estrogen problems back then. But, you listen for a little while, take supplements for a little while, feel better, and then just go back to living life the way that I was that got me where I was. But any woman who has a lot of stress and has hormonal imbalances in their teens, 20s, and 30s, I hate to say this, but you are going to have a horrific time with menopause. You know, by the time I was in my mid 40s, I had no sex hormones because I used them all up from stress. And menopause should be a transition that your body slowly diminishes hormones. And as it's diminishing them, your body gets used to, you know, having less hormones. That would be a healthy menopause. And I've talked to women who didn't know they were going through menopause, but I asked them, what was your life like? They had the same job for like 30 years. They were married to the same person this whole time. They didn't move a lot. You know, at the end of the day, they didn't have a lot of stress. So when they were going through menopause, they didn't know because their body was just naturally going through this process. Whereas someone like me, who's had a lot of stress, yeah, menopause really sucked. So you're going to have a lot of problems if you diminish your hormones. And
yes. And, you know, it would be best also for the entire planet that we start balancing our hormones, because, and going back to a tradition, the way it used to be and the way it was meant to be, where you see, like you just said, a woman who has the same job and is married and probably has some kids, if God willing and stuff, she's much less stressed, let's say, than somebody that keeps moving around, changing jobs. Not being married is a really, or not having somebody looking after you as a woman, it's very, very hard. It's not what it's all cracked up to be, definitely not. And it brings in a lot of stress. And that's why there's so many women now that have PMS problems. That's new, basically, because that didn't even exist, I bet you, 100 years ago. But many women today, because we've been put in the workforce, you know, and in order to pay more, in order for us to pay taxes to the governments, and but we thought that they loved us so much, you know. So also brainwashing is not going to help the estrogen, you know. But you know, when you look at a hair test, right, we kind of know if they, like you said, if it's a slow oxidizer, we know they have a low phosphorus, low NAK, if they have a low zinc, and even cadmium and some arsenic also, or mercury, because mercury is tied to copper. But I tell you, Michelle, it's like, it's a major problem, not just physically, mentally, just for one person, but it has trickled down to the whole world, quite honestly. We've seen it in the last 2 years. Being too coppery means you're kind of like numb, quite honestly, almost. You're not capable of getting off the couch because, and I mean, we've seen it with men. They're in front of this computer doing the YouTube, but nobody nobody got on the horse, and nobody did anything, and everybody followed rules. So that's very feminine. It's something that's a woman trait. And for a man, that's really unhealthy. It's very, very unhealthy to be in that position, because they've lost themselves. And I mean, it's not good. So, I mean, so what do you do all about that? It's like, well, you got to stop certain foods. That's going to help. There's some detox procedures, right, to do?
Detox.
Yeah, and go ahead.
And detox and get your mineral hair test. So you can see what imbalances, so you can offset that and take a supplement program to help balance things out. It's just amazing to think that, you know, things like birth control, the copper IUD, you know, these things are making women worse, causing more copper toxicity. And more estrogen dominance. And you can be estrogen dominant and have low estrogen at the same time. Same with the minerals. So if it's not being utilized properly, like example with me is it's gone into fat cells. So I carry extra weight. I know I have a lot of estrogen because of my figure. So a progesterone dominant woman may look more masculine. So she'll be, you know, no hips, not a lot of, figure. I have a lot of figure. So I know I have a lot of estrogen. But if I go get blood work, it shows that I'm low estrogen, and I'm postmenopause, so I'm low estrogen. So we got to, balance our body chemistry and reduce our stress so that we can get rid of the toxic forms within our body and then create healthy forms that we can utilize better. And that's through the adrenal glands.
Yeah, that's right. And learn a lifestyle of no stress, not putting more stress on yourself, not think about the future too much, how things are going to be. It's easier said than done, when you got the bills to pay and you got kids to look after, you have your partner, husband and stuff. But it's important because tomorrow is not promised to us. So the best way, a lifestyle is important. Go to bed early and not worry too much, and try to take life a little easier. Again, that's easier said than done. It's right? Because like now with everything going on and we kind of know what's going to happen next, it's like the other shoe's going to drop and stuff. Being prudent is very good. It's different than worrying. So being prudent is a virtue that you want to, exercise, but to worry, you have to set that aside because we can't really do anything about it. So you take one step at a time to do the things that needs to be done. Same thing when you're on the program, you take it one step at a time, knowing that you're on the right track, that you're looking after yourself, and that you're trying to balance your biochemistry the best that you can. Okay. And it doesn't happen overnight. Nothing happens overnight, but the lifestyle, by doing a lifestyle change, it makes a big difference with the hormones as well, because it's, some women haven't had their periods on the program in their early 30s. And then all of a sudden they started having their periods again, and they were able with their husband to have a baby and stuff. So, I mean, that's like huge,
Yeah.
So there is something to be said about that. And that's why me and Michelle were doing what we're doing, in order for people to be encouraged to know that there is change. And if you give it the time and you have the patience, it's all worth it.
And, any habit takes time. And, look at, if your life is super stressful, you need to do it's a seesaw. Yeah. So if you're having a lot of stress, the stress hormones are going to tell you to go for a run. Yeah. Okay, that's what the stress hormones are saying. But what you really need to do is stretch, do some light yoga, and do something that's opposite of fast stress, so that you can get that seesaw to balance out. So doing things that are, high cardio to rid the stress is making it worse. Trust me, I've done it. It made it a lot worse. I know it's hard because the stress hormones are addictive, but you got to find a way to calm down that cortisol, because what's happening is the adrenal glands are going to be your ovaries later in life if you're a woman, and you're going to need those adrenal glands to be working properly, and the thyroid, because the adrenal glands are engine 1 and the thyroid is engine 2. So if you've gotten to the point where you've burned out engine 1 and then you burn out engine 2, which I did, it's very difficult to climb out of the burnout. It is extremely difficult. But, some of us are stubborn.
Yeah, it pays off. So that's another, being stubborn sometimes is a good thing.
But, it helped me learn these things so that I can share them with other people. And, some people are going to dismiss it, because again, it's ego and fear and the body chemistry that's not allowing them to absorb and make the changes. And then some people are going to say, I don't want to struggle like that, and start making changes. And so that's what we're here for, just to talk to the people that just need a little bit of direction and they're open and ready for change in their life. So I really think it's important to balance out the stress, either reduce it. Sometimes it's hard to reduce it. Again, you could be a single mother, you've got kids, you've got a job, and life is really difficult. And I hope that you have somebody in your life, like a mother, family, that can just give you a couple hours a week or whatever to have some me time. it's really, really important that you take care of yourself, because you can't take care of other people if you're not taking care of yourself. So it's really
that's
important that we just need to sit down and go, okay, what is important in my life? What can I let go of? What will I need to let go of temporarily? Sometimes we could say, I just can't go out and have fun with my friends because they like to party, and I don't want to do that, because alcohol will definitely destroy your hormones and your adrenal glands. So you want to try to stay away from those things. They're going to just make things worse.
That's right, because I mean, the little fun that you have for about 2 hours when you go out, then it's something that those little 2 hours become days and nights of no sleep and problems with your digestion, and it doesn't help. And also, what's really important is to focus on restoring the liver, because so by doing that, it's done by having some cooked vegetables, a little bit of you do the infrared saunas, you do some coffee enemas when you can, and you drink plenty of water, especially spring water. Okay, and so that's something that people need to think about. And also doing foot reflexology is extremely helpful to assist the liver as well.
Stretching your torso so that you get those organs to breathe and make some room in there.
Exactly.
And when you're detoxing too, your organs are going to stress out during that process. I've seen it. So if you are on the program and you get blood work, you may see those numbers get out of whack. Mine did. But now they're leveling out. So you kind of have to trust the process, that we have to go back and fix things. And sometimes it wrestles things up in the system and it looks really bad, but then later it levels out.
That's right. Exactly. So it's a matter of having trust that the body has the potential of healing itself. But of course, you're not taking a pill where it's going to happen overnight. And most of the time with the pill anyways, what happens is that one problem may get resolved, but then there's another problem that comes out, So with this, you're pretty much safe, and no need to have any fear. Just do it and see how things are going to work out for you, basically.
Yep. So next week we can talk a little bit more about menopause.
Yes.
You don't hear it enough. You're going through your 20s and 30s, and it's kind of like people don't talk about it. It's like almost embarrassing for women to talk about hot flashes and things like that. And it's really important because it's a natural process. 50, 100 years ago, women were dying during menopause. We were done. We can't have babies anymore. And it was like, okay, you're out. That's it. You have no use in this world because you can't have babies anymore. But, luckily, even though we've had some things that have caused more problems with our mineral imbalances, we do have a little bit more longevity too. So we got to figure out how we can go into those years not struggling as much.
That's right. Not having the hot flash and the fatigue, and also after you get the menopause, you start gaining the weight, and how not to gain the weight around the belly and stuff. So when you get into your early 60s, that's when it starts to happen. Your body starts to change. Like for me, for example, I'm starting to look more, finally, I would say, I'm starting to look more like a woman than I did before because I was so thin. Okay, so I'm not as thin as I was, and I thank God for that. But of course, I don't want to go buy a new wardrobe, so I'm being, careful with that, because the weight comes with, most of the time, comes after, you stop your menstruation. Mine stopped when I was 53 years old. And so I was very high coppery, obviously. I'm still am, because I got no white hair. I'm still, I don't yet. So they're probably going to come all at once, So I wouldn't be surprised they all come at once. But anyway, and since I'm also finding that I'm higher in estrogen, so that means my breast is much more sore. It's like I'm going to have a period anytime soon. It's because my copper And where I am is there's copper pipes, and that's a problem. So here we go with that too. I'm starting to think, okay, so maybe the copper pipes need to be changed because it's affecting my body. Although I'm using detox procedures and I'm eating well, it seems like there's certain elements other than just the food and other
well,
than
you look at it too, you would be worse if you weren't doing these things. You know,
Yes.
I think if I'm 54 years old, I'm 4 years post-menopause, but that's by my menstruation. But I had post-menopause hormones at 46. So I'm kind of like 10 years into this. I would look and be really out of balance, you know, if I was not doing this program and eating healthy the past decade. I think it would have been a lot worse. The stress, you know, definitely contributed to the struggles. But I look at other women my age, and because they are drinking alcohol and eating badly and still in high stress situations, they're not carrying it as well. So, you know, we can minimize some of the effects, but they're going to happen. You know, this is just the way it is, you know, and
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not bad to have a little fat on us.
No,
If
absolutely.
you fall, I fell off a chair a few years ago because it was one of those chairs that you step on the back and it'll flip. And I flipped over the chair. I fell flat on my, you know what, you know, my arm got bruised, my butt got bruised, but you know what? I had enough padding that I was able to just laugh.
Yes, yes.
No, I could have hurt myself if I was too skinny.
Yes, we don't want to be like a rail either, but some people, no matter what they do, they don't gain weight. Unfortunately, I've had some clients like that. They were in their 60s and they were rails, and no matter what, even if they would eat 5 meals a day, nothing would make them gain weight. And but they were very, very coppery, very coppery. Okay, one of them is the one that has her son that is a homosexual, right? So she was very coppery, most likely, when she had the baby, and she still is. And you can tell that, you know, you can tell now. I mean, when we meet people, we know. It's like right away, we kind of know the way they're shaped. If they're slow or fast, we know if they're going to be coppery. We kind of know if they have their calcium, magnesium, if it's going to be elevated. I mean, that all comes with experience, but it's like, so we have the test because that confirms what we already kind of know as well, right?
Right.
That's right. Yeah, so it's the way it is. But listen, this was a lot of fun, Michelle. Again, yeah.
Thank you for joining me each week doing these videos. And if anybody has any comments, any suggestions, you know, feel free to leave us a comment, give us an email, reach out. If you would like to get a hair test, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share the video. And thank you again for joining us.
Yeah, we'll see you next week. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.